Homeland Security sources tell us the Trump administration is preparing to launch immigration enforcement operations in Chicago next week. Now, like the raids we saw in Los Angeles just a few months ago, this operation could include armored vehicles out on the streets, and you could see tactical gear out on the streets as well. Our immigration and politics reporter Camilo Montoya-Galvez joins us live. Camilo, do we know anything about the plans yet? Because the timing of this seems to be interesting. We heard from Chicago officials a minute ago on this broadcast saying that the president may send in the National Guard to crack down on crime, but then the timing of this as well seems like the two could be connected. What do you know?
Hi, Reed. According to two Department of Homeland Security officials, the Trump administration, specifically the Department of Homeland Security, has indeed been making preparations internally to expand immigration arrest operations in the Chicago area. The planning involves agents from Customs and Border Protection, CBP, and also Immigration and Customs Enforcement, the two federal agencies that really have been at the center of President Trump's crackdown on illegal immigration. We should also expect, if this plan is actually approved and if it actually materializes, for other agencies to be involved, because the administration has deputized law enforcement agents from the FBI, the DEA, and other federal agencies as immigration officers who now have the power to arrest, detain, and potentially deport people who are suspected of being in the country illegally. We are told by these sources from the Department of Homeland Security that this operation, again, if approved, will mirror and echo that operation we saw in Los Angeles earlier in the year, especially starting in June, where we saw many high-profile operations by ICE, CBP, and others to arrest people who are suspected of being in the country illegally. As you know, those operations, Reed, prompted and triggered widespread and massive protests. So the concern from the community, at least in Chicago, is that this could unfold again, this time in Illinois and Chicago. And this is the latest step that the administration is taking to really crack down on so-called sanctuary cities. It has already filed lawsuits against cities like New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, and other places that limit cooperation with ICE and other immigration officials. And it is also importantly threatening to withhold federal funding from these cities, Reed.
I also want to dig into your deep expertise and reporting for several months on the man that the government mistakenly deported to El Salvador. His lawyers apparently asked the judge to ban Trump officials from making what they call baseless public attacks against him. We're, of course, talking about Kilmar Abrego Garcia. What can you tell us about that motion?
Well, Reed, just to level set, since Kilmar Abrego Garcia was released from pretrial detention last week, and since his arrest by ICE earlier this week at that Baltimore ICE field office, several top administration officials like Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem, Attorney General Pam Bondi, and Border Czar Tom Homan have made derogatory comments about Mr. Abrego Garcia, calling him a gang member, an animal, an MS-13 ringleader, a human trafficker, for example, and even a child predator. That is something that Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem has called this man, who is now in immigration custody. His lawyers are now asking the federal court in Nashville in Tennessee to ensure that these officials and others in government refrain from making these extrajudicial statements. That is the word that they're using in this filing, while the criminal trial proceeds. That trial is not set to start until next year. Again, as we just underscored, Abrego Garcia remains in ICE custody in Virginia. He is being processed for deportation to Uganda, but another federal court, this time in Maryland, has paused and stayed that process for the time being to try to figure out whether or not he could be in danger in Uganda, and whether the administration is only threatening to deport him to Uganda to force him to plead guilty to these human smuggling charges that he faces in Tennessee. Reed.
Camilo, thank you so much for all of your work on this reporting. We appreciate it. You have a good Friday.